Fred Kelly here, your nerd sidekick. I need to upgrade my 6-year-old computer from Windows 10 to Windows 11, but I can't do that at the moment because my computer does not meet the minimum requirements for Windows 11. Spoiler alert, in this video, I'm going to show you how to convert a disk from the MBR partitioning style to the GPT partitioning style. That's the one thing preventing my upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11. And it's a fairly common problem that you may be experiencing as well. Now, don't worry if you don't know what all that means. I'll walk you through it step by step. But first, you need to understand why this is needed so you will know if this is even the right fix for your computer. The official end of life date for Windows 10 is October 14th, 2025. After that date, if you don't upgrade to Windows 11, your computer will stop receiving Windows updates unless you pay for the privilege. So I want to upgrade this computer. Now, Microsoft has a system requirements list on their site, and I will link to that in the description. You can do a quick check on your computer to see if it meets the minimum requirements for Windows 11, and if not, what you need to correct. Microsoft provides a free program called PC Health Check that you can download and run on your computer. I'll put a link in the description to that program. When I run PC Health Check on my computer, right away it shows this PC doesn't currently meet Windows 11 system requirements. Here it highlights the problem. It says this PC must support secure boot. If I click on See All Results, you can see all the other requirements have a green check mark. So this secure boot issue is the only thing preventing the upgrade to Windows 11. There's a clickable link here that says more about enabling secure boot. Great, let's click that and find out what we need to do to fix this. Well, basically, this page says that we need to change the PC boot mode from legacy to UEFI. So to make my computer capable of using secure boot, I need to make a change in BIOS. Now, if you don't know what BIOS is, think of it as an operating system like Windows, except it is more or less built into your motherboard, and it starts when you first start your computer. It helps connect all of the various devices that plug into your computer, like your hard drive, solid state drive, video cards, and more. And it helps get your Windows operating system up and running. Now, this is not an in-depth tutorial on BIOS, but to make changes to your computer, you will need to go into BIOS, and I will demonstrate how to do that a bit later. Modern motherboards use a new version of BIOS called UEFI BIOS, but I don't want to get caught up in that too much. Just know that for secure boot to work, you will need to change a setting in your BIOS from legacy BIOS to UEFI. On some motherboards, this may be called compatibility support module or CSM. Now, every motherboard manufacturer or computer manufacturer has their own naming convention, so you may need to do a little research on your particular brand to determine what this setting is called. To verify what your system's BIOS mode is currently set to, just type info in the Windows search box. You should see system information pop up here and just click on open. In the window that opens, look for BIOS mode, and that's right here. You can see on mine, it says that it is currently set to legacy. Now, if it shows UEFI, then your boot drive is almost certainly already set to GPT. This video probably won't help you. Now, here's the big issue for my computer and what Microsoft leaves off this page that talks about secure boot. For Windows to boot using UEFI BIOS, your boot drive must use the GPT partitioning style. Apparently, Microsoft assumes that everyone knows that if you use UEFI BIOS on your motherboard, you must also have a GPT partition boot drive, but they don't tell you that on this page. Now we finally get to the heart of the matter. When I first built this computer 6 years ago, I formatted the boot drive using the MBR partitioning style. But for Windows 11 to use UEFI BIOS, the boot drive can't be MBR. It must use GPT partitioning. If your eyes are glazing over from all of these confusing terms I'm throwing at you, don't worry. Just know that GPT is the newer of the two partitioning styles. GPT supports larger drives and more partitions on a drive, and it is required if you want to use Windows 11. And that's the key. So what's preventing me from upgrading is a two-stage problem. Stage 1 is that my computer's motherboard firmware is currently set to legacy, but Windows 11 requires UEFI firmware. And stage 2, for a Windows 11 computer to support UEFI firmware, the boot drive must use the GPT partitioning style. In this video, I'll show you how to non-destructively convert your MBR drive to a GPT drive, so you can then upgrade your computer to Windows 11. And that's assuming that your computer meets all of the other requirements, of course. Now, how can you determine which partitioning style your boot drive is using? Just right-click on the Start button, then click Disk Management. In the window that opens, you will see all the drives that are installed in your computer. I have a whole bunch of drives in this machine. It's so old, and I just kept adding drives to it. You can see the list here represents the drives, as well as this list down here at the bottom. Now, the drive that you will most likely need to change is going to be labeled Drive C. This is the typical letter assigned to the drive where Windows is installed. Now, find the Drive C in the blocks down here at the bottom, and then right-click on the area to the left. So that would be in this area here. I'll right-click and then click Properties, then click Volumes, and you can see the partition style is Master Boot Record, or MBR. Now, if this said GUID partition table or GPT, then this drive does not need to be converted. But mine is currently MBR, so I need to convert it to GPT before I can upgrade to Windows 11. Now, before I get started with the conversion, I want to caution you that you can easily mess up your computer doing what I'm about to show you. This should be a non-destructive process, but mistakes and glitches happen, so I can't stress this enough. Make a backup copy of your data or clone your entire drive before you do anything in this video. If you need help cloning your drive, click the link up here for another video that will show you how to do that. Yes, I know it's a pain and may require you to purchase some hardware and software, but it's worth it if something goes wrong. During some of my own testing, I had a fatal error because I was trying lots of different things. Fortunately, I was working from a backup. Now, if you follow along, you will probably not have any problems, but if you do, I want you to have a backup. Again, what I will demonstrate is usually non-destructive. However, prepare for the worst when it comes to your data and your computer's drive. For the conversion procedure we're going to do, there are some limitations for your system's drive, and I have also included a list in the video description below. Just check that to make sure your disk meets the requirements for the conversion. Now, I suggest you watch this video to the end before you start making changes to your computer. Did I mention that you should back up your computer's drive? Yes? Okay. Well, with that warning in place, let's get started. I'm going to demonstrate this on my computer, which uses a motherboard from MSI, and I'll show you the BIOS first to give you some understanding. But you'll actually make another change first, and what I show you now will help you understand why you will make that other change first. To get started, I'm going to reboot my computer. When you first start up, you may see a message like this that shows you the key to press to access your system's BIOS. Not all computers will show you this message, so consult your motherboard or computer documentation if necessary. In my case, the key to press is the Delete or Del key. However, F1, F2, F4, F11, F12, Escape, and even Tab are also common keys used to access BIOS. Just keep tapping that key until it finally opens your BIOS. Unless you have this exact motherboard, my BIOS almost certainly looks different from yours, but they all basically do the same thing and will have similar options. In my case, I first need to make sure that I've clicked on this Settings section on the left. And what you're looking for is something related to startup or booting. In BIOS, you tell the system what device to boot from. In other words, when the computer starts, it needs to know where it can find the Windows operating system so it can load that system. The boot priority lets you pick from many different devices where the computer will try to find the operating system and load it. I'll click on Boot. You can see this long list of possible locations here, 1 to 13. In my case, it first looks at what is incorrectly labeled as a hard disk. And that's this Samsung SSD 970 Evo Plus 2 terabyte drive. That's where Windows is installed, and that's where it will first look. Now, that setting is correct, and I don't need to change it. Now, this setting, boot mode select, is what I need to change. Right now, this is set to legacy plus UEFI. Now, if I click on that, you can see that there are two possible options. The other option is just UEFI, and that's what I need to change to, so I'll select that. Now, your system may have a setting that shows CSM or compatibility support module. In your BIOS, you may need to disable CSM to make UEFI the mode it boots with. Now, here's where the MBR/GPT problem reveals itself. Because I changed this boot mode to UEFI, the motherboard knows the type of drive it can boot from when using UEFI must be one formatted with the GPT partitioning style. Now, if it looks at the drives that are compatible, the drive where Windows is installed is no longer visible. If you look in this list here now, that drive that I had, that 970 drive, is no longer in the list. Now, if I went ahead and changed this to UEFI mode, this computer would no longer be able to load Windows. So while the computer would now be able to boot using Secure Boot, which Windows 11 requires, the drive where my Windows 10 is installed is no longer compatible. And that's what we're going to fix. Now you see why we have to convert the drive from MBR to GPT. So I will exit out of BIOS without saving any changes and boot into Windows. I'll show you two ways to do this conversion. One is free, the other uses software that I paid for and recommend. Now let's start with the free method. This is a bit more complicated and may be intimidating, but follow along and this should work for you. Now I'll be performing this conversion on a clone of the real drive just for demonstration purposes. So you may see details about the drive that are a little bit different from my real drive that actually needs converting. For example, when you clone a drive, the volume label you give a drive gets cloned too. In this case, that original drive was labeled Samsung NVMe 980 Pro 2TB, but the physical drive I cloned it to is a Samsung 970 drive, so just ignore the 980 label, which is user changeable. This is a 970 drive, and you'll see me reference that several times later in the video. You will need to know the real model ID for your drive. You can see the real model information by right-clicking on the Start button, clicking on Disk Management, locating the drive you will be converting, usually drive C, then right-click on this area, clicking on Properties, and on this window that opens, the model ID is displayed along the top and also on this General tab right here. I suggest writing down your model ID for later use. Built into Windows is a tool called MBR to GPT. As the name implies, this utility will convert a drive from MBR to GPT. This program does a variety of things, including verifying that your drive can be converted to GPT. Then it actually performs a number of steps to convert the drive, including creating a new EFI system partition, which is required when using the computer in UEFI mode. To run MBR to GPT, you need to get to a command prompt and run the program. It's best to run it in Windows PE or what's called Windows Pre-Installation Environment or Windows RE or Windows Recovery Environment. Accessing Windows RE is simpler to access than Windows PE, so I'll demonstrate how to do that. To use Windows RE, you'll need to restart your computer in a specific way, so just follow these steps. First, save and close anything that you're working on because we're about to restart your computer. Then click the Windows Start button, then click the gear icon, that's Settings. Click on Update and Security. Click on Recovery on the left. And under the Advanced Startup section, click the Restart Now button, and that will immediately restart Windows in Windows RE or Windows Recovery Environment mode. Now, once Windows restarts in the recovery environment, you see here, click on Troubleshoot, then Advanced Options and Command Prompt. And your computer is going to reboot at this point, but it's going to start in a special way that will allow you to do a couple of extra things. You can see now it looks a little different. You see there it says please wait. You don't normally see that when you're booting into Windows. Now, it may be necessary to sign into your administrator account like you normally would when you first start Windows. It's prompting me here for a login, so I'll type that. And you'll see this window here that has the command prompt, and you'll be dropped into the System32 directory, which is inside of the Windows directory, and that's where the MBR to GPT program is located. However, you should be able to type the following commands from any directory. Now, to make sure the disk that we're working with is okay to convert, you can run the command MBR to GPT space / validate. It will attempt to validate the disk, and you can see it says that the validation completed successfully. However, when you actually do the conversion, the disk validation will be done automatically as a part of the conversion process prior to the conversion. The command to actually do the conversion is MBR to GPT space / convert. Now this process normally only takes a few seconds. I'll hit enter. And on the screen here, you can see all the various things that happen during the process. There's quite a few things that take place during the conversion. In my case, you can see the conversion threw off this error message. It says failed to update reagent.xml. Please try to manually disable and enable WinRE. However, in my testing, this did not cause any problems later on. I think this is a result of the fact that my computer is now 6 years old and I have put it through a lot in the process, and some of the files from the Windows operating system are not what you might find in a fresh install of Windows. But notice that it does say conversion completed successfully. That's the thing that you're looking for. So I'm confident that my drive is now the way I need it to complete this whole conversion process and upgrading to Windows 11. Ultimately, if you want a system that's going to run smoothly, consider reinstalling Windows Fresh. Of course, that would mean reinstalling all of your programs and moving your data around, and I just don't want to do that at this time. Now that the conversion has completed successfully, I must reboot and go back into my BIOS and change the firmware so that it can use the UEFI. And you can see here, it does even tell you before the new system can boot properly, you need to switch the firmware to boot to UEFI mode. So that's very helpful. So I will type exit, press enter, and click turn off your PC to reboot. And I do need to actually press the power button to restart the computer. Once that starts booting up, again, I'll press the delete key until I get into my BIOS, and I'll click on settings, click on boot, and then back to this boot mode select here that I need to change. So we're currently on legacy and UEFI, but I just want to be on UEFI, so I'll click on that. Now I need to also make an adjustment here so that it still doesn't know where the boot drive is. It's still not showing that 970 drive. And so I need to go into the UEFI hard disk drive BBS priorities and click on this. And so there is that drive. It is the boot drive now. It's available. I can click on that and back out of that. And now if I go here, this is the one that's selected. The 970 drive is the one I want. Now I just need to save my changes and exit so the computer will reboot. Save and exit, save changes and reboot. And it just gives me a summary of the changes that are going to happen. I'll click yes. And now the computer will reboot. And if all goes well, I'll reboot into Windows. And it looks like Windows is coming up. And there's Windows. So it looks like everything is good. And if you don't boot into Windows, don't panic. You probably just need to go back into BIOS and make sure the correct drive is selected as the first drive that the system will boot from. In Windows, I will come here, right click on the Start button again, click on Disk Management. That'll open the window where we can look at our drives. And again, I'll scroll down to the C drive. Let's find that. And there it is. And I can see this, it's got an EFI partition, so that's a good thing already. I can see some things are different. I'll right click on that, click on Properties, click on Volumes, and look at that. The partition style has been changed to GUID Partition Table, or GPT, where before this was showing the disk was MBR. And now I can check my system information just by typing info. Click on Open here. And let's take a look at the BIOS mode. There it is. It's on UEFI. Now if I run Microsoft's PC Health Check again, click on that and click Check Now. And you can see this PC meets Windows 11 requirements. So I can proceed with the upgrade. So that's the first way you can convert your MBR drive to GPT. Now, if that's too complicated, I want to demonstrate an alternative. This uses paid software, but it may be easier for you. Plus, the software does a bunch of other things that you may find useful in the future. Now, this is not a sponsored video. I paid for the software myself, but I do have an affiliate link in the description if you'd like to grab a copy of the software for yourself, and that does help support this channel. This software is the Minitool Partition Wizard, and it can clone and backup drives. It also helps you make changes to drive partitions, among many other things. And of course, it will also convert an MBR drive to a GPT drive, or it can even do the reverse, which is converting a GPT drive back into an MBR drive. To demonstrate this, I made a clone of my boot drive when it was still using MBR, and I reset my BIOS so that it is back to the legacy mode. So to make this conversion, you first need to come over here to your computer and just start the Minitool Partition Wizard and click yes to allow changes to the device. And that'll load up in here in just a minute. And this shows all of the drives in your system. You can see I have several drives here, as you've seen before earlier in the video. Now, the one I'm concerned with is, again, the C drive where Windows is installed. That's typically going to be the drive that you need to convert as well. So I'll scroll down here. It's small, but you can see the drive letter. This is the C drive I need to convert. And you can see right here, it shows that this is a MBR partition drive. And you can see the other drives do show whether they're GPT or MBR. So this is a drive that I need to convert. So if I just click on the disk here on the left, and you can see the options up here change depending on the drive you're looking at, based on the settings of the things that you can change on that particular drive. And you can see the option convert MBR to GPT disk. Or if I could also right click on this and you'd see the same set of options here, but I'll go ahead and click on this one right here. Now the program displays this warning. This is telling you that after this conversion takes place, you will need to go into your BIOS to change your boot mode to UEFI. You saw something similar to that earlier in the video. This is just a message letting you know that this needs to be done. This is not a warning that something is wrong. So click OK to clear that, and you may or may not see a big arrow pop up over here on the lower left. Now, before any changes take place in this program, you do have to click this Apply button. Now, at the top, it shows you that there are 7 operations pending. And if I just click this arrow, that will show you a list of everything that the program is about to do. And you can see that, again, it's going to convert disk 6, which is the one we're worried about, to GPT. And again, all the things that it will do. So I'll click Apply, and it will give you one last warning here, making sure that you want to apply the pending changes, and it warns you to close other applications. So I'll click Yes, and that process will begin. Now you can see it gives a warning here. It says that the resize partition operation that it needs to do can't be completed because drive C is currently in use. So it gives you some options of how you can resolve that. And so you could retry or you could just cancel it, but you can also restart now and it will run some processes outside of you having to do anything. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to click on restart now, and that will restart the computer. The program has restarted itself. I didn't have to do anything other than just let it run. You can see it's taking care of the different things that need to be done in the process of preparing the disk to be converted to GPT from MBR. All right, so it has completed some of the steps that it needed to do, and it's going to reboot once again. And again, I'm not having to do anything. It's all running on its own. And you can see, if you look on the screen here, it's stuck. It can't go any further, and that was expected. The program warned us that we need to go into BIOS and change to the UEFI mode. Remember, it was on legacy mode earlier, so now we got to switch it to UEFI. So what I need to do is I just need to reboot the computer. I can hit Control-Alt-Delete, and that will make the computer restart. And then now I can, as before, I can hit the delete key once it gets to that point in the booting process so that I can go into BIOS and make that one change. All right, so now we're in BIOS again, and I can click on Settings and click on Boot and change the boot mode select from legacy UEFI to just plain UEFI. And so now now that I've changed that, I need to make sure that this is actually able to find the drive that I have in the system. And so right now, if I click on these boot options here, it is not there. So I've got to click on this UEFI hard disk drive BBS priority. And now here's the one that I need. It's this 970. And so I've selected that and I go back out. And now I should be able to click on the boot option. And there's that drive. Now it's available to me. Select that. And so now I can back up and I can click on settings. If I click on save and exit and save changes and reboot, again, it tells me what's going to happen. I'll click yes. If all goes well, I should be able to now boot back into the disk with the disk being converted from MBR to GPT. And I can see Windows is starting to boot up. So that's a good sign. And there's a couple of things I think that the partition wizard is still wrapping up, and looks like we're in good shape here. I can just log in. All right, so here we are on the desktop, and I can go into my disk management again. I'll right click on the start button, click on disk management, and let's find our C drive. There's our C drive, and you can see it has an EFI system partition, so that was created in this process. I'll right click on this, click on properties, click on volumes, and now you can see this is now a GPT partition drive. So the process worked, that's great. And I can come down here and type info into the search box and click on system information. I'll open that. And you can see there's our BIOS mode. It is now set to UEFI, which is the goal of what we were trying to do here. We had to convert the disk from MBR to GPT so that we could then run this computer in UEFI mode. And so now, if you wanted to, you could upgrade this computer to Windows 11, and I'll do that. I may make a video about that. If I do, I'll put a link up here to that video. I'm Fred Kelly, your nerd sidekick. I'll see you on the next video.